My fiancé's parents insisted I sign a prenup, saying, "Our son's money should stay in the family." His mother even said, "You'll always be just a guest in his home." They were happy when I inherited millions, thinking I'd pay for their lifestyle, but instead, I smiled, slid the prenup back, and said, "Let's talk about what's really mine." I met Ryan in college. He was the type of guy who seemed to have everything: good looks, charm, and family money. His parents were extremely wealthy with big estates in fancy places. Ryan was used to that life but didn't show it off. He was kind-hearted and treated me well, even though he came from money. After 5 years, we got engaged. I was excited. I had a good job and worked hard, but I wasn't as rich as his family. I didn't think it mattered until I met his parents. Ryan's mother, Victoria, seemed to judge my engagement ring as if it wasn't good enough. I tried to ignore it, but things got worse. Victoria and his dad, Richard, invited me to lunch at an expensive restaurant, where they immediately brought up the prenup. "We need to talk about the prenup," Victoria said. I was confused. "What do you mean?" Richard explained, "Our family has worked hard for its wealth, and we need to protect it." I was waiting for Ryan to speak up, but he didn't. Victoria continued, "It's not personal, dear. You'll always be a guest in his home. It's just a formality." That hit me hard. I wasn't upset about the prenup itself, but the way they made it clear that I'd never be part of their family, no matter what I did. I signed the prenup without fuss, but it had a clause that anything I gained on my own would stay mine. They didn't think it would matter, laughing it off. Then, 6 months before the wedding, I inherited nearly $9 million from my great-uncle. I didn't tell Ryan's family right away. I wanted to see what would happen. The shift was immediate. They went from looking down on me to flattering me. Victoria invited me to spas, and Richard called me dear. A week before the wedding, they invited me to dinner. Victoria handed me a folder and said, "With your new financial situation, it's only fair to revise the prenup." I took out the original prenup and slid it across the table. "Actually, let's keep things the way they are." Victoria's smile faded. "Sweetheart, that's not really it." I replied, "This keeps things fair. What's mine stays mine, and what's Ryan's stays his." Richard said, "We think you should contribute to the family." I finished his sentence. "You want me to protect the family's wealth, like you assumed Ryan would do for me." Victoria's eyes darkened, but I stuck to my decision. "I'm saying no." Ryan finally spoke, but I stood up. "I was ready to marry into a family that never really wanted me, but I won't be manipulated." I left them sitting there, stunned. The wedding was still on, but it wasn't easy. I made it clear, prenup signed or no wedding. They were angry, but we went ahead with it. However, things changed. Ryan's parents grew more resentful, and Ryan couldn't decide whose side he was on. This marked the beginning of the end for us. Later, we moved into a beautiful brownstone I bought myself. Ryan's parents hated it, calling it charming with fake smiles. They didn't care about the value of it. They only cared if it was old money. Over time, Ryan started to act defensive about my work and finances, and then his parents showed up unannounced, asking for money for a business venture. Victoria said, "We thought you might be interested in investing in a family real estate project." I told them, "I don't invest in real estate." They tried to pressure me, but I stood firm. "I'm not going to be manipulated." Ryan stayed quiet, avoiding my gaze. I realized he knew they were coming to ask me for money, and he let them. When they left, Ryan returned later, saying he needed time to think. I told him, "This isn't about liking your parents. It's about not letting them treat me like a bank account." He hesitated. "They just want what's best for the family." I stared at him. "Define family?" he asked, swallowing hard. "Us?" I replied, raising an eyebrow. He paused, and I could feel my heart sink. "Wow. Can we not talk about this right now?" I let out a short laugh. "Oh, we're definitely talking about it right now." He rubbed his nose in frustration. "I don't know what you want from me." "Loyalty," I said, stepping closer. "Respect. I shouldn't have to fight for my place in my own marriage." He sighed again. I waited, but he said nothing, and at that moment, I realized that no matter what I said or did, Ryan wasn't strong enough to stand up to his family. So I made a big decision. I smiled. "You're right." He blinked. "Huh? You don't know what I want?" I shrugged and said, "Let's fix that." I walked past him, grabbed my phone, and called a number I never thought I would. When Ryan saw the name on the screen, his eyes grew wide. "Wait, what are you doing?" he asked. I pressed call. He stepped toward me. "No, wait, The phone rang a couple of times, then a voice answered. Hello? I smiled. Hey. Yeah? Came the response. I think I'm ready to move forward. Ryan went pale because he knew exactly who I had just called, and he knew this wasn't going to end well for him. His face drained of color as he realized it. His voice was tight. You're not serious. I smiled. Oh, I'm very serious. The person on the other end asked. Hello? Are you still there? I turned my back on Ryan and walked into the next room, closing the door behind me. Yes, let's move forward. 3 days earlier, I had a feeling things were about to go wrong, so I did what I do best. I planned ahead. Ryan's family thought they were the only ones who could control everything, that they could manipulate any situation. Not me. I started making calls, first to my lawyer, then my financial advisor, and finally, the big move, I called my uncle's business partner, Ethan Carter. Ethan was a smart, old-school businessman who didn't put up with any nonsense. He had worked with my great-uncle for years, managing investments and protecting their money. I met Ethan in a modern Manhattan office. He studied me for a long moment. Your instincts are right, he said finally. Ryan's family is planning something. They think they can get at your money by pressuring you. I exhaled. I thought so. Can they? He smiled, but not warmly, a smile that said he knew exactly how to ruin someone's life if pushed. We'll make sure they never even get close. And that's when the real plan began. Present day. I stepped back into the living room, slipping my phone into my pocket. Ryan hadn't moved. His hands were clenched, his breathing uneven. Tell me you didn't just do what I think you did, he said. I tilted my head. That depends. What do you think I did? His jaw tightened. You called Ethan. I smiled. Smart boy. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Jesus, you don't understand how this works. Oh, I understand perfectly. I shot back. Your parents thought they could use you to pressure me. They thought they could push me into a corner, and you let them. It's not like that, he started. It is exactly like that, I interrupted. Ryan stepped forward. Listen to me. My father. I held up a hand. Stop. He froze. I continued in a low, firm voice. Your father, your mother, they don't scare me, and now they're going to learn exactly why I turned away. I started walking toward the door. Where are you going? Ryan demanded. I didn't even look back. A week later, I sat in my office to watch the fallout while sipping coffee. The first call was from Victoria. I let it go to voicemail. The second was from Richard, ignored. The third was Ryan. I answered, and his voice was frantic. What the hell did you do? I took a slow sip of coffee. Here's what happened. Our accounts are frozen. My dad's investors are pulling out. The real estate project is dead, and my parents are losing control. He let out a soft tisk. That sounds like your problem, I said. Ryan's breath was ragged. You set us up. I set my cup down. No, Ryan, you set yourself up when you let them push me around. Over the past week, I made sure that every one of their financial lifelines was cut. Ethan used his contacts, investors, real estate moguls, and more, to send a clear message. Investing in your family was a huge risk. By the end of the week, their entire financial world was falling apart. Victoria was furious, Richard was desperate, and Ryan finally realized he had made the wrong choice. You need to fix this, he said, his voice shaking. I leaned back in my chair. And why would I do that? Because we're married, he replied. I laughed softly. Oh, Ryan, you really don't get it, do you? He pleaded. Now we can figure this out. We can. No, we can't. I stood and walked over to the window, looking down at the city. But I can, I said calmly, and I already have. Ryan was silent. He knew what that meant. I now had all the power, and I wasn't done yet. I could hear his heavy, uneven breathing on the phone. Are you, he swallowed, are you trying to destroy my family? I turned from the window, my voice calm. No, Ryan, they destroyed themselves. I just made sure they couldn't hurt me. There was silence. Then, in a low, broken whisper, he said, I love you. Something tightened in my chest, but I kept my face still. Maybe you do, I said, but you never respected me. I hung up. I wanted it to be over, but it wasn't the last battle. A few days later, Victoria and Richard decided to go all out. They arranged a family meeting without telling me and told Ryan to bring me along. Ryan, he pleaded, please, just hear them out. I almost left. After everything, He still thought they deserved a chance, but then I realized it would be the last conversation, so I said, fine. We met in a cold penthouse. Victoria sat on a leather sofa with her hands neatly folded. Richard stood by the bar, calmly pouring a drink. Ryan looked exhausted, messy hair, loosened tie, dark circles under his eyes. For the first time, he seemed unsure, as if he didn't know whose side to take. Victoria broke the silence. We're here to fix this. I crossed my arms. Oh, so now you suddenly care about fixing things? Richard took a slow sip of his drink and then said, let's be honest, we all know you don't want a divorce, so let's discuss a new agreement. I blinked and then laughed. You think I want to stay? I asked, after everything? For just a moment, Victoria's mask slipped, and her lips curled. Don't be dramatic, dear. Richard set his drink down. You played your power games, but we're offering you something real, we're offering you family. I stared at him and said flatly, you don't offer family, you either are family, or you're not. Victoria exhaled in frustration. You're making a mistake. No, I said quietly, my mistake was thinking I ever belonged here. Ryan suddenly spoke, his voice raw. So that's it? You're giving up on us? I turned to face him fully. Oh, Ryan, I said softly, you gave up first. His face cracked with emotion, but then Victoria played her last card. She stood up, smoothing her dress, and said in a clipped tone, it's a good thing you signed that prenup. I tilted my head, and why is that? She smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Because you get nothing, no money, no support, no access to our world, you walk away with exactly what you came in with. I grinned. You're absolutely right. I do walk away with exactly what I came in with, and that's my entire fortune. Victoria went silent. Richard's grip tightened around his glass. Ryan's eyes widened as he realized they now had nothing to hold over me. I took a step forward and lowered my voice. Here's what's going to happen. I'm leaving. Do not contact me again. Don't harass me, manipulate me, or try to drag me back, because if you do, I smiled coldly, I will make sure your reputation is ruined. Victoria opened her mouth, but Richard put a hand on her arm. He understood. I turned to Ryan. Goodbye, Ryan. He said nothing, so I left, not looking back. The divorce happened quickly, the prenup made sure of that. Ryan tried to reach out a few times, texts, calls, even a handwritten letter. I never replied. His parents lost everything. Their real estate deal fell apart. Their investors vanished. And soon, the wealthy circles they once ruled didn't want anything to do with them. It turned out that burning bridges has consequences. And me? I was finally free. I moved to a new city, traveled, and lived like I had never lived before. I no longer looked over my shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally happy. People like Victoria and Richard don't change. They just adapt. They find new victims, new ways to manipulate, and new ways to keep themselves afloat. Ryan, I'm not sure if he ever really understood what happened or if he just couldn't face it, but I learned that love without respect is just a trap, and I was never going to let myself be caught in one again. The end. Please leave your comments. We're looking forward to your comments and channel subscriptions. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching till the end.